Good evening, everyone. Welcome to America Disclosing the Dark Network Project. So here we are tonight, and we're welcoming back with us for the second round, Steve Ghostman, and it's going to be incredible. We're going to talk about a bunch of different variations of things, where the paranormal conspiracies, cryptids, and everything else meets in our reality somewhere. So we're going to try to figure out where exactly that meeting is occurring. But welcome and good evening to all. Please like and share if you can. Give us a little support that way. That's all we ever ask. We never ask for anything else. So share the content. I also want to share a little bit of upcoming with everybody that's coming up this Saturday evening at 7 o'clock. I'll be on with Nancy Thangs, a contactee. So she's going to have a lot to say. Upcoming is Dennis Stone. That's pending. We're waiting on a date to confirm it, but it's in the very, very near future. Friday, I'll be on with Mark Oley. Really great guy. You're not going to want to miss this. This is ufology at its best. So, make sure you check in with us and check it out. This refers to well, some call it and his book calls it the Europe's Roswell. And the one thing I want to say about Roswell, it seems like everybody's had an effect of some type of Roswell event. So this should be very, very interesting, especially when we talk about some of his background. Fascinating gentleman. And following that, next Friday, I'm going to have on the girl from the stars, another. Let's call her a contactee. So ufology and much more. I like that kind of stuff. It makes me vibrate. It makes me vibrate. So here we go, brother. I know we're going to start to get this shared out, and I'm going to do that right now just for a moment to get it on make sure it's on my page platform. And yeah, here we go. All right. I'm glad I don't have to do that tonight. So anyway, brother, how are you? I wish you well. I hope your family's doing well and everything, and you're all staying strong there. I've been looking forward to this. It's been some weeks since we've been on together, and I thought we had a pretty incredible discussion. I hope you feel the same way on that. So let's go for round
I
two
really
here.
do.
Where do you want to start? What's on your mind? What have you been researching
Well,
and studying recently?
well, first off, I'd like to say it's funny that you mentioned Roswell because I was born in Roswell.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah,
you just never. It's
I was
funny
born
how the
in
world
Roswell.
works.
Yeah, yeah, and then I wind up in the Uinta Basin, one of the world's most hot spots for a variety of activities here.
Right.
From the Skinwalker Ranch, there they have Skinwalker Ranch is roughly around 30 to 40 miles an hour, or yeah, miles an hour, 30 to 40 miles from here. And same with Blind Frog Ranch. It's about the same distance.
Yeah.
So we
Here's
get a lot
something.
of, go ahead.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of a back loop on verbiage here. Are you closer to Blind Frog or closer to the Skinwalker?
Well, they're each about 30 to 40 miles away. I'm in Vernal, Utah. And I've been on the Blind Frog Ranch. I was on the first tour that Phenomicon had out here. The first year Phenomicon was out here. It
Okay.
was pretty interesting. Dwayne Ollinger is a pretty cool guy, pretty mellow. But
Interesting. Yeah, he does seem to be exactly that, and he's also pretty well informed with some of the ufology and some of the what's in the sky things that I talk about because I love what's in the sky, that theory of it, but a lot of people don't know that show is really somewhat, and I don't want to say this in the wrong way. I think he said it himself, a reenactment. A lot of these things that they've experienced have now been processed into a show, but not just that it's been processed into a show. There were some reenactments, but he says that they are all as accurate as possible of everything that they went through
yeah,
in the time periods of.
yeah, that's kind of what he was putting across when I was there, was that you know, he wants to be as honest with people as he can, you know, but there are disclosures that he does have to abide by, you know, when, especially when they are doing the show there. You know, there's a
Right.
contract of a disclosure that they have to, uh, yeah, a contract of confidentiality that they have to adhere to until the show is aired.
Right, right.
But
And
yeah,
I understand how that works. And I send him nothing but respect on that because, he's
yeah,
spending an enormous amount of money to try to actually, give us something in return for it. So, special thanks to all those guys down there at Blind Frog Ranch. One day I might come visit you just to ride up there and say hello to those guys. Hopefully they ain't got no, what I call sand traps out there though, because, he's had a lot of, people come onto his land and without permission, of course, and just start digging. But beyond
yeah.
all that, thanks for bringing that subject matter up. Isn't that in a way somewhere we're going to head tonight too, as well?
Well, yeah, kind of. I had talked to him like about, you know, asked him if what he thought about the Anunnaki, and his eyes just kind of wide open, and he says, "Well, I can't." Said something about I can't get into too much of that right now, but he says, "Yeah, I do believe in or beings that came from space." You know,
Yeah.
he couldn't disclose too much. I don't know if that had something to do with the show, or he just didn't want to get into the controversy. Although I don't see him not wanting to get into the controversy. but but yeah, same with Travis Taylor on Skinwalker Ranch. He's even mentioned the Anunnaki, and like like uh, the title Anunnaki is just that. It's a title. It's in reference from anyone that came from space, basically.
Hmm.
The Anunnaki were a variety of species, I believe,
What's
but
your theory on
they
that
were basically,
variety?
well, I believe that, well, just like our society is built, you kind of have different levels of society, you might say. You got the higher level, the middle level, and then the lower level. But the lower levels are the working class. But the Anunnaki had like I believe, had the Ajiji, what they called the Ajiji, that were more of the working class of the Anunnaki, although they are, I believe, deemed Anunnaki just simply because they too came from space. But when they came here, the Anunnaki and the Ijiji are the ones that did most of the labor for probably several thousand years, and finally felt overworked and rebelled, and that's when they created the labor man, you know, the Adapa. But I believe in that during that time. In fact, in some of the ancient Sumerian texts, they tell of how they went through multiple types of experiments to finally come up with the labor man. But I believe that's where possibly the Centaurians come from, the Minotaur, possibly even Bigfoot. And like the ancient Egyptians depict dog-like beings, dog slash humanoid type beings. Could that be where Dogman came from? You know, could that be a descendant of them? So I don't think that I seriously don't think that ever left us. I think we've still got beings here that are directing our society. I think they just kind of went behind a veil.
Yeah.
So, and I'm, you know, so keeping that in mind, you know, did their experimentations really stop?
Yeah. What you're saying corresponds to a lot that we all are learning as well. That there are crucial points to everything that you brought up in ways. Now, you've mentioned some of these other beings. I call them some of their defects. I just do.
Oh,
Maybe mistakes that had occurred, but it had honestly existed at some point due to their hands' involvement of this creation that was coming down and around. The Ajiji, however, in my mind, I don't know, and I don't know if we could ever hypothetically say in theory that they were actually part of the same race of blood, but perhaps they were maybe a possibility of somebody else's experiment of the creation
yeah,
of that
yeah, yeah.
interplanetary build that they were doing to get from one perception in the galaxy to another to come to Earth. And we do know that there were things like that occurring, and there's a lot of knowledge out there about some of that, and it's pretty fascinating. But when we look at where we are in today's society, it's a hush hush shh, no talk about, and
Yeah.
that could be very possibly why things are so protected. I'll give you an example of something. I believe the guy's name was Joe Gardner, who claims that he had an accident in a car on a dark road and he had hit one and he killed it. And he rode up the road. He really felt that he did something to it, and he pulled over, and he's like, "What the hell was it?" He didn't think bear at all. It just didn't bear. Just never fitted into his vocabulary, into his mindset. He turned around and went back, and there was another car pulled over, and there was a couple there at the place of the incident. And he says, "Is it like he played it kind of dumb but smart, saying, what are you guys doing here? Is everything okay? Do you need help?" And they said, "Well, we thought we seen a couple bears, fighting or something, and we pulled over and started to watch." A few days later, he got arrested by the state police and some of the local police. They brought him in, and supposedly, as the story goes, and this is a story that has been out there living. If you look for it, you'll find it. It exists. Where Joe says that he was arrested by these folks, and government people came in, and as it was said to him, that he killed one of their adversaries. So, is it possible that this is something of from way back when, if in fact that his story is 100% true? Now, I don't understand, I will never understand why a person would come and give a story in such detail, complexity, and depth if it was a lie, if he had something to lie about.
Well,
So I would just
well,
suggest to anybody, if you can look up Joe Gardner, I think he's actually on Facebook. Look into his story. It's pretty fascinating to hear it. And I think there was several parts to the story. And I have reached out. I am trying to get him on to give us some of those details. But again, just to correlate with where you were going, what you were saying, the hush hush and all those things, it seems to bring us into the present period of time where we're still existing in that quiet society of lost history. And then we go back and I'm going to go back with you. And since you were describing some of this, the ones from the stars and so forth, and the facts that they have been involved in some type of creation, would you like to further on that? Because my thought, and I think I shared this with you at one point, was the fact that, if we look at them being the fallen angels, because they did something with the women of the earth, is it because they created the women of the earth? Or were they already here? Were they a substance of one of the eight uh, uh, forms of humanity that walked before the creation of this known creation that they did to improve it and hybrid it? It puts you all over the roadmap here, wouldn't you think?
yeah, it really does. uh, well, for one, you got to kind of define uh, what you mean by angels. What does an angel mean to each individual? Uh, I mean, I'm sure it means some kind of a divine being to each and every one, but I mean, in actuality, is an extraterrestrial a divine being? And those that I mean, if you really research uh, the the ancient Sumerians kings list, uh, the ancient Sumerian stories and everything, uh, they depict the different types of species and everything that were coming down and that were involved in the uh, in the development and everything of society. Now, uh, to me, it makes more sense that it would most like. Okay, I do believe that there are celestial beings, some of which may would like to help see us ascend. But in order for us to ascend properly, we have to be able to do that in a more natural way. You know, I I believe that if uh, an alien species come here or expose themselves, and with technology and stuff that would cause us to advance in leaps and bounds, then is that really to our best interest or theirs? Because I believe that this planet has been harvested for resources long before man ever was was created. So we were just a means to an end with them. Uh, so and in that too, in that same frame of mind, they may have created the labor man, but at the same time, the labor man served them. They couldn't have done it without us. They had to have some kind of a labor resource, or they wouldn't have been able to do it. So to me, that's kind of a symbiont relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. And when we see some of these depictions that we see paintings and petroglyphs and all that, got to fit that in there a little bit because I made mention of it. You always see this larger than life supreme being, and it may not even have anything to do with size of like them being a giant of
Well,
so to
it
speak.
could
And
be
I
their
think that's
stature,
yeah,
social
it's
stature.
stature and position of who the great ones really were, and what they did. When we look into this, because it's a family record of who came here and what they did. It was, men who married women of a different race, different than what we think, but maybe are in ways quite the same. It all goes by DNA, and maybe some DNAs are so close to us we couldn't tell a non-human from a human, even if they when they look like us. How do you define it? You
Yeah,
cannot look into them to do it, but I think it's pretty logical to think about that too. And you brought up the kings and so forth, and the statue there. Um, I want to just nail on this just for a quick second. Um, you know, a lot of people always say the pyramids were the place that the kings would rest. And I won't say that they never found a body in one or buried underneath it. There's been some information that reflects that. But for the most part, it seems more like they were designed as energy shells with certain geological features that work like a computer system or a huge battery component. And if they were really just, in fact, that for these supreme beings and so forth, because I think they were more about healing and energy and longevity, the things that they don't want us to have now in life. But when
yeah,
you look into that part of the equation, what I would like for everybody to keep in mind, the importance here is if these were actually structures where people stole the bodies and all the gold and silver and all the things that you think are supposed to be in them, why do we have a Valley of the Kings and a Valley of the Queens as burial grounds?
yeah,
They
yeah.
had their resting place. These things were not purposed for those uses in my mind.
Yeah, and uh, they had the Valley of the Gods too, where the Anunnaki, that was their basically their region, or and they had the Valley of the Rockets, I believe, where I believe was one of their spaceports. You know, their I I would assume that's where they loaded all their resources and everything, and then that the Valley of the Rockets probably were, which I would assume would be close to the Valley of the Gods, where they would haul their their shipments to, I believe it was Mars. I think they used Mars as a way station, um, loading up, as much as they could there on Mars because Mars had a much less gravitational pull there, and it was much easier to haul uh, much larger loads from Mars than it was from here on Earth. So, and I think now, I mean, the there's stories like the kings, ancient Sumerian kings list and stuff tell of, and oh yeah, and lost tablets of Enki. There's a few other stories that tell of how Mars was used as a way station, but before it was used as that, there was an ancient god, quote god, but I guess he was the one that battled Anu, the king of the Anunnaki, and he was exiled to Mars to live out his days. I won't go into to their battle and stuff, but there was supposed to be a monument. His face was supposed to have been erected on Mars that you were supposed to be able to see from space. And what are they seeing now? They're seeing a Mars. They're seeing what looks like a face on Mars that you can see from space.
Yeah, which NASA, of course, puts weighs in on that narrative of it's all shadowing and whatnot. But we know that shadowing that they probably are reflecting to is their painting over and what they did
Yeah,
in pictures. John Lear talked greatly about that. That he had the original pictures that were taking of the planet, but they all subsequently had went under changes. So yeah, I get where you're at. So again, going back to creation this way and the possibility of these hybrids, and as you know, what I've nicknamed them. Some people use other names like Bigfoot, Dogman, and these other entities. The possibilities are that some of these ancient creatures were here that were different from even humanity and were never used. Some were created, or just maybe in ways they were the defects that seemed to work. And there's even
yeah,
Bible content that talks about friends to friends. Marduk, and who had a great friend who was a hairy man, known as the hairy man, the
yeah,
Bigfoot.
yeah,
And this comes
yeah,
up a lot in a lot of people's talks and podcasts. And my God, there's now I think in the last 3 years, podcasts have tripled, doubled, and quadrupled where everybody's weighing in on, in the field of being a podcaster. I'm not saying that's bad. They're bringing information forth, and we can't listen to them all. It's actually, in a way, plummeting down on us, and in ways helping, in ways I don't want to say hurting, but miscommunications is maybe some of the informations at times do that. But I think everybody's trying to give it a fair shot to try to acknowledge what we're looking at and what these theories behind everything are. So yeah, the one thing that still weighs in my mind, though, in this
what,
battle on Earth, or whether it was on out of the heavens of Earth on Mars, if a fallen one did become fallen, and it's blamed on sexual content. I don't really believe that if these people were bigger than life, is what we would understand to be like giants of magnificent size. How could this being even have an encounter with a woman unless that they were somehow, would you call it, fetally injecting them to have this DNA structure implanted into them? And maybe they went too far, and that's where the race of the giantism really came in for some odd reason. So it's
yeah,
conflictive, but needs to be talked about.
yeah, and I think that's very possible there that because it did, the Bible does say that they come in or into the daughters of man. Okay, what does that mean, into? You know,
Hmm.
how does that correlate? Because in other stories in the Bible, it almost seems like it was either written by another author or something like that, because in some stories it may say that they laid down with the person, meaning that they had sexual encounters and stuff. But so why does it say came into the daughters of men? Does that mean a possession? Uh, you know, and another thing I'd like to bring up is I've read too that when the fallen ones came down and impregnated these women, them women had turned into uh, like harpies. So I mean, there's that too.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I have heard that. I haven't been able to verify that or anything like that. But I thought that was an interesting, prospect, that was part of their consequence for basically getting involved with one of the watchers, was they were turned into a herpes, and that's where the
Yeah.
herpes come from.
Well, like River Rose just posted, a good friend of ours here at the show and follows and stuff. She says that they have turned into the Syrians, and there's a possibility of that because if we
Oh
really
yeah,
look at it,
yeah, I'm sure I've heard that too.
but in my output of look is they intermixed blood of everything that was had two legs and walked on
Yeah.
this earth and made use of them.
Well,
Um, and
well,
so I
I don't
don't
think
think
it's.
we can take any culture out of the picture.
Yeah, did it really stop there? I mean, there are depictions that were of fish people in ancient times. Could that be where mermaids come in?
Well, there are what they call humanoid fish too, that fish that have faces of humanoids. And here we're going into
Yeah.
that theory of the water and stuff. I hope we have enough time to touch base on this too. But yeah, you're right. I mean, could it possibly be, or could it be another extraterrestrial
Another
civilization
type.
that's
Yeah.
coming here also doing some things in this planet, whether it be purposeful for them or to gain from us in certain ways, or in them leaving certain things behind. And we see some of these disruptions because this is where I talk about the defects. What were they doing, and why was it happening, or was this just part of the unification of matter, of the naturalization of matter coming together, sewing itself to create through this, for whatever is technology, which is like an internal technology. It's nothing made, but it's everywhere in the universe that somehow knows how to create. And again, it comes back to the point
Yeah.
of we're living in times now where things like this are good to think in the ways that we do because there's significance behind it, and it all has a sequence together in some ways, as far as that part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to open your mind, to do your own research. I mean, just like what we're talking about, we've found this out through our own research, and this is what I'm hoping for, is to encourage people, you know, well, that's kind of interesting. Let me go do some research on that, find out for themselves, But at the same time, let's share this knowledge, because it's only when we come together that we'll see the whole picture.
I agree totally. I
So
agree.
that, but
So,
but for
so
me,
do you
there,
think that they caused their own ELE?
uh, I'm I don't know. It's possible. I mean, there's uh, I believe that there's different types of beings that have been here and possibly still here that are experimenting with their type, crossbreeded with other types, with other species here and everything. So I think it's just really deep. I think there's so many layers to it, that you really have to strip away to really find out where there might be some connections. And I really do think that if we get to see the bigger picture and strip away all the deception and everything, we're liable to find that there's a lot of dots here connected.
Yeah. I agree.
So
I agree. But the one thing I think we can agree to over periods of time, we've seen these levels of extinctions occur. And again, it's almost like a factory reset occurs. And we got to go back to the beginning to bring us up to the future. That is always the scenario with destruction of
yeah,
everything. You
yeah,
gotta start back at the very basics with nothing to go back to the future of some to bring back the positivity into the future of something. And I think this is how that platform sort of works, in my mind. The same as when we talk about, and you mentioned ascension, going to a higher level. Well, there's a lot of people who are promoting different star seeds and people that have nothing but good elements of thought for us. They want to see us ascend, and we are ascending into something that we're not going to be able to return out of as well. When we look at the big picture that we're all living within now, but also letting it weigh with the effects of what we know of history back then. So this level of ascension, I mean, if you think about it, it's like people are, and I'm not trying to go political here, but I think people are trying to get to this Rome of a different light of what ascension is. And I don't know in some ways if people are lost within what this ascension is, because I see it of what I've seen in history. Technologies of things that we are just practicing now or probably have been suppressed from us, but are still being practiced and have been hidden but working in that element. So is ascension something of a heaven on earth, or is it something of technology and slavery to come back as it once existed?
no, that would be more of a material world to me. If you want ascension, that's more of a spiritual ascension. I mean, for me, we are all part of the universe. We're all part of God. God is the universe. God is everything. I mean, that to me is God. The source of everything. And Adam wouldn't exist without the source. Okay, well, those depicted in the Bible and stuff like that. I mean, if you really think about it, it's like he has multiple personality or something. Multiple personality disorder, or either that or bipolar. Because on one hand, it says it wants you to love thy enemy and love thy neighbor like you would yourself and everything. But yet, he wants an army to go out and wipe out women and children and anything. Don't leave anything alive there. I mean, come on, man. That just don't sound like the kind of God that created all this stuff. To me, it's like it's destroying what God created. If God can create all this, then He could wipe it out too, in a blink of an eye. You know,
I think that's the
so I
complexity
and
of everything. Yeah, that's the
I think we're
complexity
all
of
in it.
everything we're against.
Yeah, and I think in essence we are like uh, a fraction of God's consciousness. We are all experiencing life, or God is experiencing life through our lives, through our experiences. This is what we bring back to Him. So if I do wrong another person, then I'm actually doing wrong to the source. That this is the source in a different format, basically. So, but that's the way I think all living things are. There's a purpose for them being here, and that could, to me, it would make sense that is the source's way of experiencing things through our experience.
Well, in creation, everything was created to be able to recreate. Um, it's a magnificent thought. It's mind
In
blowing.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't, and we understand now too through science that plants talk to each other. They communicate and create balance for us in humanity. We fight to plant more and put up more trees and care for the earth, while others are trying to dismantle it. And I think these are them that that form of that dark source of nature when we talk about it one being the light, one being the dark, of course. And to me, it's just like a fundamental uh, example of disruption and confusion for our minds. And who are these writers of all the books? I mean, if we go into Notre Dame and the Mayans, it seemed like that they were onto a calendar date of so many years of something epic to happen to this earth, and for us to go back into the reset. And is that reset of this epic proportion something of a catastrophic scenario, or man's hands to be involved to, rip us apart, and I guess in ways to look. It even takes me into the fact when we look at some of the systems of what we see, what we've learned. David Paulides, his book 411. Well, I talk about the abduction of 911. My theory is different than him. Look, he's a rock star. He knows what he's doing. I take nothing from him. He's a teacher to me. But if I can say something that helps teach him, I like to put an awareness out there, part of that system of manipulation too, that it's just not about missing on the lands. It's missing from the oceans. It's missing from the air. How many thousands and thousands and thousands of people through history where ghost ships were found and there's nobody on them? All the supplies are there, but the people were they vanish. I think we have a manipulation of a lot of things occurring all at once. And this is almost like a set to keep us busy in a certain way. So we don't look into the research that you and I are talking about right now, but the new distractions may, in fact, keep us distracted even longer for a bigger agenda or something of that nature.
Sorry, my overhead light went out, I guess.
I saw that. The paranormal has arrived over
left
you.
Me in the dark, man.
I didn't mean it, but you know what? Notre Dame really has hit things on the head. He talked about the 1666 fires, and did they not happen? Yes. Has he been right on everything? No, but not everyone has ever been. But they talked in their books, they wrote in their books, and they shared their memoirs with their families, and these things still exist where catalysm will come. And I don't know if it's just because the possibilities of this vastness of greatness of this universe will play a part of it, or if it's a factory set of technology who can turn planets into spacecrafts, and they just explore this vastness, and we as people of Earth being held back in certain ways are like the cornerstone of the possibility of the fracture, of the demolition, and I think as us as a human race, when I look into that and reflecting back to this, like my abduction 911 to the David's 411, when we see where people go missing in these slip times, or these portals that are sometimes said, or the fact that the possibility that aliens are just abducting and taking them off, or maybe the aliens are taking them underground. When you look at the magnificence of what has been created down there through the deep state industrial complex. I mean, this isn't political. I'm just trying to bear weight to facts of all the systems, because we might be blaming Bigfoot for something he is not doing to anybody. And it could be a larger picture where they are becoming an slavery system, just like we talked about what the Anunnaki did. Now reliving it, pulling people down under, making them slaves to build these unifications of cities. And what would the purpose of that be? But there's our military and the money to do this we don't even have, but yet it's been accomplished. So who is building them besides a nuclear boring plasma machine? Who's boring these? We understand they can create these tunnels. They're taking a lot of work off man, definitely. But it goes beyond that part. It goes beyond the people that need to move that machine, to bring the infrastructure in, to pour the concrete. How many hundreds of thousands of people do we have missing that it would actually take to build these structures, when they claim that we have over 1,000 within the United States, and tunnels that go all the way through to the ocean for submarines, for good and bad and nefarious systems of work. It just makes me wonder, again, when we get into that narrative of what it is, it reflects back to how history could be reoccurring now in the present.
Well, I think that when the Anunnaki came here, possibly even Enki, that discovered a lot of underground, caverns and everything like that. Uh, and through history, it depicts of the underworld. And could that actually be, the underground world, the world that's under? Uh, and Admiral Byrd uh, claims in his personal journals that he had been taken into an opening up in the, I believe it's, can't remember if it's North Pole or South Pole, but he claims that through his experience that you could go through from one pole to the other through the center of the earth. So I mean, I'm sure that ain't a straight line. That's probably going every which way, but I think it's fully possible that there could be ancient civilizations that are living underground and have for thousands of years, possibly even a reptilian race. Reptilians could possibly get along pretty good underground.
Yeah, yeah. Phil Schneider made mention of that. Well, he was down there doing works, building some of these structures, preparing to build these structures, doing all the geological reports and figuring out the complexity of the stone and the environment to know where they were and how they would build if it was adequate to do so. And here he claims he was shot up by entities, not
Yeah,
of
yeah,
any type of human entity, with magnificent weaponry. And then,
yeah,
as he went into the public's eye with that story for about a year, he met his own demise. And this has happened in the military with people that wanted to say things. The Kennedy, all these fascinations of how we get to where we are, of this. Huge accomplishment of a war on people. Slowly indoctrinating, slowly taxation, slowly this, slowly that. But it gets to the point of where we are. And it just makes me wonder for the fear for the children and humanity itself. The possibility does exist that they may have knowledge that they will never share with us because it would be too damaging in our minds to start facing consequences where we could be eliminated in some way from an ELE. And for people that don't know what an ELE is, it's to me, in my mind, it's an extinction level extermination of humanity. And we know that these things have happened. We've heard of the great floods. There's always some type of typical turnaround. But, again, I'm just trying to keep light the subject matter that reflects from the old to the new and where we find things and how things were done and where people were buried. And these chambers be possibly being healing chambers in the pyramids or power source.
rejuvenation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You cannot, in my mind, talk talk about one narrative of subject because it seems like the complexity moves out to a filtration of spider web everywhere. It all
Yeah, it
fit.
just it opens up a lot more rabbit holes.
Always more questions than answers, right?
Yeah, yeah, and some of these catastrophes upon the world, like the Great Flood, I believe was actually the planet Nibiru, the Anunnaki's planet, passing through our solar system, wreaking havoc in our solar system. I don't think I don't think they could have stopped it if they had wanted to. All they could do is cower to their ships. They did have a choice: save mankind or let them be wiped out. And Enlil chose to just let us get wiped out. It was Enki that uh, saved us through Noah or Zeusudra or whichever you want to call them. But
Yeah.
some of these catastrophes that depict like in the Bible and stuff is God-born catastrophes and everything. Well, some of them they couldn't have stopped it if they wanted to. Some of it they even caused themselves and then realized that they did more damage than they thought they were going to do, like the nuclear wars in ancient times and stuff. they ended up doing more damage than they anticipated.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now that you brought up that fact of point, there were certain things that were pointed out by Notre Dame as well, where he spoke of fathom and nuclear war and all these worst case scenarios that would come into years, maybe not within our life, but the very near future. What causes all that to kind of happen? Could a planet system coming in that we think rotates every 33, is it 3,300 years plus some,
3600,
yeah, give or take,
3600
yeah, give or take.
SR.
Maybe we're coming up to that period of time,
Yeah,
just like the Mayan calendar was trying to explain to us. But I think the theory on the Mayan calendar, not by my mind, but theories coming from other to this that I gave thought to, the possibility could be true that they are looking at 100-year time sequence within this event. And in ways, Notre Dame did the same thing. Now, this is a culture of people that didn't know who this guy was, and what his writings meant, and how accurate his accuracies were. But they match. They do have a power blend to them that put us into that subject matter. It's just crazy. It's as far as fetch as it may seem, and sci-fi that some people say, I just cannot believe it. Well, we don't live in such a perfect world. Look at what we're living in. The endless
yeah,
possibilities of anything happening at some time. We've experienced these things. Can meteors get through the firmament, this ozone? We used to be told as children in the world of science that the ozone protect us from a lot of different things, and the firmament did it as well. Hillary Clinton said they were still trying to bomb to get through it. I, you know, I,
huh,
I think in ways people just want to screw with humanity's minds.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Keep us confused. Because if they can keep us looking in the other direction, then I mean, just like a magician, they want you to keep focused on one hand, on say the right hand, so you're not paying attention to what the left hand's doing. And
I'm telling
I
you, it's
think that's
crazy.
that's been the case. That's been the case all throughout time. All throughout man's history, and before probably, I'm sure.
Hey, would you like to take a question that was asked the last time you were on that we didn't get to?
Sure.
Okay. Basically, conjuring elementals and is one. Is it, do we think that it's a possible fact that that could be? And two, and you don't have to answer them together, but you can if you want. Let me think of it. Let me think of it. Oh, okay. With all the technology that we're using in the fields of paranormal and research, ghost hunting, and at times, sometimes more, we get sometimes responses that come through knocks, through an entity or an energy touching, playing with cat balls versus some of these meter detectors that if they come up and just touch it as they're being asked to, it goes off. Um, do you think that human spirits are in the same place as the demonic spirits, the entities that never existed?
That's a very interesting question, and I mean, there's no definitive proof. Everybody's got their point of view, but I'm not thoroughly convinced that what comes across as a human spirit is in actuality a human spirit. I mean, we like to think it is, but due to the fact that we have no visual on them, we have nothing to, no, uh, no book to go by, and I believe there's interdimensional entities like the Watchers that were depicted in Enoch and everything. I believe were probably basically interdimensional, or at least could go in and out of our visual range. Okay, well, so could I mean they've been some of these entities could have been around since man was created, and in doing so, they know what makes man tick. They can they may not be able to think for us, but they can manipulate our thoughts through our influences, through our greeds, through whatever they think I mean, they know us probably even better than ourselves, you know, if there are these actual entities, and I believe that there probably are. So could they just be tapping into your psyche because, you know, maybe it's a trickster and they want to mess with you? So I myself, I don't completely trust who I'm communicating with. I've done a lot of communication sessions, but so I always keep in the back of my mind, you know, this may not actually be a human spirit, but through the line of questioning and everything, I do ask, uh, if I have no other validation, I do ask, you know, have you ever lived in a human form? You know, hoping that maybe I can get an honest response. But sometimes, like we were out on a trail one time, and I believe we ended up getting in contact with possibly something elemental because through the communication session, it claimed that it had never lived as a human or a human or a human or an animal, but that it was basically part human and part animal. But I know it's confusing. But through the communication session and everything, I mean, if I had it here, you might better understand what I'm talking about. But so, in other words, I mean, if you go into types of elementals and stuff, there are several different elemental beings that could fit that description. But it indicated that it was basically a guardian of the forest. I mean, even in Native American beliefs, they believe that there are guardians of the forest. Now, is that what we come in contact with? That right there told me, you know, it's not just human spirits that we may be able to contact with. It's other types of beings too, you know, other types of entities.
A
So
frequency of energy and knowledge. And yeah, as you said, it could all be and this planetary trick just to keep busy and dysfunctional. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
you
who's
got
to
you got to
say?
keep that in mind.
Yeah, truly, who's to say? But we do see examples where people asked, and somehow they are responded to. That like one of the ways now that's becoming more popular is everybody's adapting to the ABC ledger, where you know they'll get something to knock or make a noise in a room that shouldn't be there, and suddenly it is a paranormal entity that it has arrived. It could be an alien race. We don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I theorize even around that, like when people say that they have been taken. I'm not doubting them, their stories may be valid 100%, and I think
Or
that is important that we accept it. But are we consciously with our body walking through these doors, walls, windows, and rising into these crafts at times? I mean, it's speculation. It doesn't mean I'm right in any way by bringing it up, but I'm just saying that there are things that are I have a really good friend in here that's been I can't say a lot about him, but he's very, very knowledgeable. I'd love to send him an invite right now and get him in here because he's a very knowledgeable person with a very extensive background. He has interviewed the best in the world. I mean, he has sit so high once upon a time on a platform, but decided mankind was more important to him. He's making a lot of comments. It's hard for me to read them in the glare with my eye, but yeah, I mean, so you know, we get all these things of future. But hello to you, my friend. I just wanted to make sure you know that I do know you're there, and I appreciate you watching over my shoulder. He has a lot to say, and he has a strong way of presenting his cases all over the board. And again, as I say, you know, he's talked to the best in the freaking world. He really has. He had a huge platform. He had the world in his hands. But nevertheless, to continue where we are just for the moment, um, you know, we see this ABC platform starting to make senses in ways where, in communication through the letter, they would once they hit upon the letter, they'll hear a knock, and then they say, "Okay, A." They start again. A B C D E F L. Okay, L. Was your name Al? One knock, yes. Two knocks, no. You know, and there people are adapting to it because it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to spend any money to try to create this contact. It's like a Ouija board of verbalization. You don't need any energies to guide you or take you or mislead you, but you go by the fact of your verbiage and the fact that they can hear you. And it seems to me, if this is all factually true, I've never really experimented into it. There's something there communicating something, but the knowledge that's coming back in a couple scenarios that I've witnessed, they were being told life part stories within them, which makes me wonder how this universal internet system works, or these others from a world next to ours, these interdimensionals that are coming in and out that have this control, and maybe they are there what as our watchers or part of the system of watchers that just maybe need to ease our pains in certain ways. Because to me, when we hear about people describing events and things, sometimes in a way it's about the subject matter. It's the word of persuasion that could be used to turn you into a believer, or the message of thought, and maybe they read on our thoughts. And I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah, and well, like I say, well, I mean, who's to say they may be able to read our thoughts even? You know, our thoughts are frequency. You know, could they read that frequency? So, and pretty much everything has its own frequency. Uh, the what we see could be just a momentary alignment of our frequency with theirs. You know, so we're kind of phasing in and out of each other's reality. But
Hmm.
with so many, I with my experience, research and investigations and stuff, that uh, there are different there are enough different types of entities out there that I think it would cause a person to not trust exactly, or fully trust what they are in contact with. Just keeping in mind, this could be a player, someone playing with you,
Right.
playing with emotions. uh, they're like demonic entities can come across as an innocent child in distress. They can come across as an innocent loved one in distress. So and some believe that our consciousness in reality is kind of a collective consciousness, which would put it basically back to the source. So, if we go back to that collective consciousness, does that open up what we've experienced to everything else? So could something else be using that to manipulate us?
Right. Exactly. And you know what? Here's how we might be able to understand a little bit of it. And I don't know if I'm right here, but I'm Michael. And Michael thinks out of the box on everything in that what if category that probably needs a new name. But when we hear about monks and things that they practice and understanding energies and
The
frequencies,
frequencies.
and they really do. And Bruce Lee was another
Yeah,
one. Nobody
yeah,
understood how, with an inch of a body, he could just go, and you flew back 20 feet. Or a
yeah,
man could put himself into an energy phase consciously and be hit with something that should have broke his skull open, and it doesn't damage him.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
these
it takes a lot of
frequencies,
conditioning.
and let me say this to you, as someone who used to fight, if you're next to somebody who believes in this, be careful what you wish for when you walk into those ropes, because these people that practice things like this, when they do something and then they release from it, they actually give off an energy. You feel it in front of you, as if a
Yeah,
ghost just passes through you. A frequency of something hits your own body and passes into you. You actually feel what has happened. And people did describe that even with Bruce Lee. I think that was one of the reasons he was most feared, not because he had the most talented moves. Many men knew his moves. He had a power of theory, of mind and consciousness over body to move matter somehow, with not using anything more of force than any other man would, but understanding how to use the energy within the force of it. I don't know if that
yeah,
makes sense to you, but it takes us
yeah.
into
It
another
does.
It takes you into another realm of theory of, and some people might say, well, it's the endorphins, it's all this stuff dumping into your blood. Someone of his stature wouldn't need to have that. But in the case where a mother has to lift the car off a child, yes, something could maybe do something to us. Or a man that's trapped in an automobile and bends the frame of a car to get out to save his family, of something that would take a machine, a PSI of 3,000 square pounds per square inch to move it, and yet he does it. It's pretty amazing that there is something that is out there that is available to us if we take the time to learn about it and utilize it somehow. And I don't know how that would be. I don't practice as they did. Some of these men that study these arts and do these things and some of these fascinating stories, the fascinating stories, the people don't even understand how they did it themselves at the end of the day. But there are people that do understand it and have shared it. And I think it's up to people to take these types of things in and try to enlighten themselves in life with it. Could that be that whole material blend of that ascension and energy that more people need to focus within?
Well, your emotions are put out a certain frequency of energy, I believe. You know, anger is going to emit a certain amount of certain frequency. Sadness is going to emit a certain frequency. So, but people, people like Bruce Lee, they can, I believe, he can gather that frequency and use it at will. Rather than just being brought on because someone made you mad or something, that an external factor,
Mm-hmm.
an external trip factor. He's able to be able to control that energy within him. He can call it upon demand. So
Yeah.
it's just like well, I used to do a little bit of martial arts and then breaking boards and stuff and everything. You just got to feel. To me, I would fill myself full of energy and just kind of burst in one focal point at once. I'm not sure just how to describe it, but that's what I was doing was focusing my like my adrenaline energy, my emotional energy, and everything into one spot. Well, that could be what activates, like say a mother pulling or lifting a car off a child and everything. That emotional frequency was so strong she was able to alter, in a sense, some of reality around her. In that case, being that she was able to lift the car.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there are spiritualists, I'll call them that, who also believe if you're going out somewhere and you pre plan it in your mind in some way and you keep the positive note, and I've done this before and it's happened for me, I would say the percentages have been higher when I think to do it, that I want to park right up front. I want to be able to, and I would say my
Yeah,
percentages when I do that are higher, that I get a
yeah,
parking spot in front of the store much closer than I normally may have. So I
yeah,
think that there is like not a power of persuasion to it, but a theory of something of subject matter that actually can work if we take the time to acknowledge it and try to, do what the monks did. I think the Shalon monks, I think that's how it's pronounced. Solon, I think it's Sollain. They practice this. This is their life. But they also practice things where normal men would never think to do, that makes them so agile, smart, strong, and become the best out there that study in the arts of martial arts, and not even just in that, in the overall picture of life. And people
yeah.
they kind of like tend to stay back from that. All right, so the conjuring of elementals, is that something that you have ever come across um in your past, as doing paranormal research as well, um, to be able to explain it in good terms?
Well, I believe an elemental is one that is more of in tune with nature, like a jinn. I'm sure you're familiar with the jinn.
Mhm.
That's where basically genies, the belief of genies come from. But they're believed to be an elemental, but they're an elemental of fire. You know, they're supposed to have been created from fire. So these elemental beings, I believe. I mean, if myths are correct, and I believe there may be some truth to myths, but if that be the case, jinns were created from fire, then there could be others created from water, from earth, from wind. Uh, so that in itself would be uh, a different variety of things to that would take different techniques to actually interact with. You
Mhm.
won't be able you may not be able to use the same technique with everything. Just like these EMF meters and stuff. Yeah, you can be able to detect certain kinds of energy, but not necessarily all the kinds of energy that might be around you.
Right. So maybe in some of these higher energy zones, maybe when we may call them like these uh, electromagnetism events that occur, but maybe they're part of what that is in these higher elevated numbers where this occurs. Maybe these are the time slips that um, then somehow other things see through to us and we perceive them to be in our own environment when they may not be.
Yeah, there's a story of it's been a while since I I heard it, but it was a tribe that was on an island, and they could see something off at the distance in the ocean, but they
Hmm.
just couldn't figure out what it was. They could only just see that there was something there, but they couldn't figure out what it was. Well, it was a ship in the distance, but they had never perceived a ship. They had never seen one. They didn't. Their minds didn't know how to perceive the ship. All they knew is it was something out there. So and that could be the same with us. Where our minds haven't been tuned to perceive certain things.
Right.
So I mean, some of us have, some of us haven't. So and some have been perceived to see one thing, or I mean, been tuned to perceive one thing. Others may be tuned to perceive other things. Some people can see spirits. Maybe some people can see shadow people where other people can't. Maybe they have the ability to just see just slightly in a different spectrum or something.
Right. So
So
if people that go out to look for Bigfoot have that conscious thought, people go out and look for Dogman, have that conscious thought. Or
yeah,
people that want
yeah,
to go into the paranormal and they want to see that first shadow figure ever. That's their
yeah,
thought. And somehow through the energy of whatever these substances of the EMFRs, if in the right time in parallel with us, we manifest. I'm not saying
yeah.
that we're manifesting them, but we're helping the manifestation of them.
Manifestation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we're
yeah,
helping that. We're a party
yeah,
to it.
yeah. Yeah, I could certainly see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
really interesting.
yeah, we're kind of aligning our energy fields or something. But yeah, I believe that if you go into something with preconceived notions, that in itself can manifest something in your mind. Even something that really isn't there. Pareidolia is something real big. If you manifest, if you have it in your mind, that you're out there and could see Dogman or Bigfoot or something like that. And I'm not saying this is always the case. I'm just saying that it could be in some incidences where you have this preconceived notion, and now anything you see shadowy or anything like that moving, you might perceive it as, oh, is that Bigfoot? Oh, is that Dogman? It's preconceived notions. Well, that's the same way with when you're investigating like spirits and stuff like that. You can't do it with preconceived notions. You have to understand that this may not be a spirit. You can't go in there that, oh, whatever I get in contact with is going to be a spirit, or whatever I get in contact. This is a creepy place, so whatever I get in contact with is going to be a dark spirit. You know, you can't go in there with them preconceived notions, because you might be able to manifest that yourself.
Right. Right. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate it. I want to go on to something that I was asked that I didn't answer. I don't know if they're going to get their answer, depending, because I didn't have time to share this into all the platforms. We're only on Facebook. It'll get out there, so they may get their answer later. But
Okay.
at least I done my homework for them and thought to answer it. Okay. And I'm going to put it this way, because they were asking me about the existence of UFOs and Nimitz and all these different things that have occurred. David Grunch coming out and all that, and this into the world of this paranormal that we are, of the unknown. So I come up with a theory of thought, and ways, because USOs, UAPs, all these different significances of these three-letter terminologies that they use, I think they all have the ability to do whatever they want. And they can manipulate us through our own eyes by, now you see me, now you don't. Meaning, like, at one moment they're here, and within a flash of a split second, and that didn't even happen, they're already over here, thousands of miles away. But in your visual, you don't perceive that distance, but yet it has occurred, and then they jump back. So it's like they're
Uh-huh.
jumping time. They're slipping through. They know the
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
work the energies in the atmosphere. And then when they go, you get a USO. It goes to go into the water. They never splash. It's like
Yeah.
there's some type of plasma force. I don't know if that's what you would call it, even, or they break the unified matter of the substance that holds everything together that we have here. All the matter gets
Hmm.
broke for them to have no barrier around that's probably why they can reach speeds of 12 and 16,000 miles per hour. They break the fragment of pressure. It's gone. So
Yeah.
they can make these turns, whether there's human interaction flying them, or whether it's a gray, a robotic gray, or some type of technology drone thing that they use. They can do it because they feel nothing. They have nothing to feel. It's all of the
Uh-huh.
same thing as you and I are sitting here. And to say one thing even a little different, how I prove my point on that is this: if we ever really been out to up there, and the Apollos coming in under such duress and heat, if we have done it, if we ever have done it, and they come down on that parachute like they used to before they were being jetted back in, with all the special skins now applied to them, as quote unquote,
Uh-huh.
that they say they use.
Yeah.
Why didn't they ever steam when they hit the water?
Oh, well, that's a good point. Could be. I mean, after getting through the ozone and everything that in the upper atmosphere, it is quite a bit cooler. Would that give it enough time to cool down before hitting the water? I don't know.
Well,
I'm not there to really say.
yeah, and I am not either. I think it would be a mathematical problem that somebody should look into that could probably weigh in on it better than I ever could. But it just makes one person think. But these crafts can do some pretty fascinating things when you think about it.
Yeah, the way
Um,
the way they manipulate through our reality. Yeah.
right, and maybe that's how they can frequency certain people, whether it's through brain waves of technology, searching out families having recalls throughout their life and their mother's life, and their whole ancestry system of being abducted and more. And they create this elevation of something that they just feel, as we see in some of these cartoonish depictions of people just rising up into the craft. I don't know if it's a spiritual ascension of an out of body experience, or the fact that the body was there, or they never left the room and they just create this um, A&I technology system to where you think you are somewhere else. Because these are things that we never really always get answered. But I am going to have a couple fascinating guests on that are going to talk about that, who are experiencers, who have gone to that level and have asked questions and have been able to give answers. So it's going to be really interesting when I do those shows that are coming up on What's in the Skies. But I wanted to answer that and get a little bit of your thought. If you want to add anything to what I said, please feel free.
Well, yeah, we've got the technology to be able to manipulate even people's thoughts and everything in our military through resonance frequencies and stuff, altering resonance frequencies. They could make you feel like you've got bugs crawling all over you. They could make it. They could turn us into killing each other. They can make us cower. Uh, if we've got that technology, then why wouldn't, uh, extraterrestrials that have been here for how long, just the ability to get here you'd have to kind of figure that they'd have the ability to be able to manipulate uh, our our frequency, the frequency of our reality, being able to maybe phase in and out of our visual range. They're actually still there, just out of our visual range.
Right.
They believe that shadow people. There, there's theories that shadow people are actually interdimensional entities. They can be like face this way, but they turn sideways like that, or they can. If they're turned this way, you can see them, but if they turn this way, you can't. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
now you see me, now you don't. And it seems like that's just everything that we experience, right? We can
Uh huh.
conclusively say that it falls within everything that we are researching within. It doesn't matter if it's the cryptids, the conspiracy of some sort of what the whateverness is, or, the paranormal. It just seems that this subject matter always is has so many similarities to one another.
Yeah. Well, for me, there's enough evidence out there that I mean something's going on. Okay, so let's don't get distracted by does Bigfoot exist or not? Does Dogman exist or not? I mean, for me, there's enough historical evidence that something like these do exist. Well,
Right.
let's move past that and try to figure out, well, where would they come from? Do they come from the same source we do, or some other source? Let's move past the do they exist or do they not, because there's enough eyewitness accounts all throughout history that there is beings like this that do exist. Okay, well, where do they come from? If we can figure out where they might come from, then we could probably prove they do exist, and be able to better understand why and how to even contact them, how to be able to track them down.
Right. And why would the government have so much interest in them? I don't think they want to protect anybody when it comes down to it, except a narrative that uh, that fits their demeanor of what our thoughts and conscience should be. Uh, you know, where you'll have nothing, be happy, so to speak. But some people have said that they feel that they are here just waiting to help humanity at some point as a theory, and they stand in the shadows and lurk in the backgrounds, just observing us. They don't want to harm us. In some cases, we hear that these things have harmed people. I had a guest on recently that had one in front of him, that it described his face as being so human like, and the neatness of his how he was groomed was perfect, as if he had an obsession with his own looks or something, or somebody did that helped took care of him because he was more of a teenager-ish age as in his observance. So you have scenarios like that. Pennsylvania Bigfoot, by the way, is a really good group. Mary's been on with me. We had a really great show together. I want to thank her for that, and I'm going to have her back soon too. I also want to put out to anybody out there, the what's in the skies, what does it represent? Well, it represents you. I want you to know that it's a place for you to come that's safe. It's going to be a radio talk show that you can call in on. You can describe your experience. We're going to have 50 people in 50 states that are going to be observing with you, listening for you, taking your stories, and they're not going to be like working like reporters. If you need to be in contact with somebody, they will be there for you. However, we want to focus mainly on the disclosure part, what you can bring to the forefront on podcast or on the radio broadcast that will confirm the disclosure of your sighting and where it was, so we can grow forth, just as you're saying with Bigfoot and everything else. So from up in the air to on the ground, it doesn't matter. If you had an experience, that's what's important, and we want to help you do it. And there's a hotline for it. It's going to be posted soon. It'll be on one day a week, and I hope that we get callers. Right now, I'm trying to strengthen the growth. I just wanted to share that out to everybody. I think we have a fair shot, just like MUFON did, but we're not going to do a no disclosure on it. We're not going to wait a year to go to a lecture where somebody has to pay $20, $40, $50, $60 and buy t-shirts all night. And I'm not saying that's bad. People make livings. I get it. But that's a foundation of life. But, I want to be able to do it weekly where people have the information, that it gets out regularly, not monthly, not quarterly, not yearly. Because once upon a time, I think there was a strength behind it. And once upon a time, I think that strength was kind of removed. I could be totally wrong, but I think under the old world order of MUFON, it has changed. OWO is everything. When I refer to an OWO, it's the old world order. It's the old world assembly. It's all these narratives. And I want to be able to be more productive for the American people, at least, and us in America, to be able to get the information out. And if anybody has a story, I want you to know there will be a number posted. You'll be able to call in. Just trying to pick a day that's regular for everybody so we can all, indulge on that information, hear what people have to say, and keep the documentations. All of us have it in our minds.
Keep the conversation going.
You must. It's something that shouldn't end. When you let it end, you might as well say you give up.
Yeah.
And we can't give up. We just can't. Anything else you want to bring up tonight? Please do. I'm all in for it.
No, I think that probably about covers it. I got some things I got to be getting onto here pretty quick.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we gotta stay talking about this. We gotta do it with an open mind. It's through each other's perception and listening to them perceptions that maybe we can start putting some of this together better. We need to come together. I mean, even telling your story may help somebody else to feel the courage to come out with theirs.
Exactly.
And in doing this, I mean, let's gather all this information. The experiences, each other's perception. I may view something different than you. You may view something different from me, but these different perceptions may be vital in how we perceive it as a whole. To understand these different perceptions, because I believe that the truth is multidimensional, and the only way we're going to be able to even have a chance of comprehending it is if we think multidimensional, and through others' perspectives and stuff too.
Right, because people were smart and they deserve to, get the information and share it to everyone else. But you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing all that up the way you did. It's up to us to stay strong and to keep defending everything that we're researching. And, that's why I enjoy it, even if it's just pictures of ancient stones or an artifact. It takes us back into a system that we were misled in our teachings, that of things that they didn't want us to know about, that now we're learning about. And I think the more we can learn, the more people share, just as you said, the further we will get, and the research on so many different topics. And there's many topics out there that people have interest in. I hope I hit on some tonight for you. I know Steve hopes he hit on some for you tonight as well. Thank you, Steve, for coming in. I appreciate you being with us, on the paranormal conspiracies and cryptids and everything else here at the Dark Radio Network Project. America Disclosing Uncensored is what we should focus on. to where our focus should always rely on being uncensored, to where we can give all real research the benefit of the doubt as we learn about more every day. So, brother, I wish you well, your family well. Again, I thank you. We'll go for a round three at sometime in the future. You know that. Be a
Yep.
regular. It's perfectly fine. I
Yep.
just love to talk about this. It's just fun to do.
Oh, yeah. I get pumped when on the conversation. I can talk about it for hours, and I sure appreciate you having me. You're a
Oh,
good
it's been
guy.
fun. I'm
I
happy to have
appreciate
you.
you. I appreciate your efforts to get it out there, get the news out there, the information.
Will do, brother. Do what you can to get it shared. Once I get off here, we'll start landing it into some other sites. Again, my apologies on the miscommunication. I really thought in my mind it was a 3-hour time difference, and now I know better. I got a big note right up there. Steve is only 2 hours behind you. Believe me, it's right there. It's right there now. That won't happen again. But again, I
All right.
appreciate you, and my best to your wife, and thanks to your son for helping you be able to do this tonight.
All right. Well, I sure appreciate you. And would you mind if I go ahead and post a link to my paranormal support group
Oh my
for
God.
those that would
No,
like to?
no, no, no. Do whatever you want, wherever you want. Anything I have. Look, I got a lot of groups, some political, some non. Wherever I am, it's an open format to the public for you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll post a link to my group in the chats there if anybody's interested. We're
Okay.
a
Yeah, please
paranormal
do that.
support group where people can share their stories and get informative information on what is deemed paranormal.
Sounds great, brother. Go ahead, do it.
All right. Appreciate you though.
All right. You have a great night now.
All right. You too. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, that was another show. It was pretty fun. Um, all over the place, but you know what? Sometimes topics are like that because thought patterns change. Trying to connect everything and trying to understand the sense behind everything. I know I've probably said that 10 times tonight, but it's factual. It's the truth of what everything means. And to this future of life that we have and the future of the children. If educational systems can't give them the facts, then we should, as parents, try to share as much of the knowledge that we have. I wish more watched, more would be entertained by it. Times are a little different, and there's a lot of pressures and social anxieties out there. And, hey, I keep my thoughts in the best way towards everyone suffering through these things. But at the same time, I enjoy this side of it. I hope it doesn't hurt anybody or create conflict. It's just a matter of trying to understand, and being objective to certain things that may have prudence as to why one thinks the way they do, such as me thinking the way I do, or you thinking the way you do. But from all of us here and the ones behind the glass doing their best tonight to get this out there to everybody, please like and share. We never ask for anything monetary, never, ever. And I hope you will check out what I have coming up. I have 5 or 6, 7 shows already lined up for What's in the Skies, bring on really good people with really good information. And some of it's going to be different from some of the others. In the meantime, taking calls from guests who might want to call in to share their experience, and the co-host on with me that at that time will also be able to, weigh in, and we'll give support the best way we can, accepting the information. So you guys all have a great night. Thank you so much. Take care.